everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis and Nate at it again. We're doing a lot of episodes together. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's become more convenient, and I'm trying to record more and be more involved and just, on the shows where I am a co-host, be more present. I had an interesting week. We did a live show in London for Trash Future. The weather is starting to kind of warm up, although I think we're going to hit another cold snap. I don't know. All things are going well. And I figured why not talk Army with you and, get a chance. I appreciate you giving me some slack when I was touring Australia with my podcast. So, I figure we can talk, have a nice little chat. And we have some great military news to talk about because, of course, there's always something stupid.
Well, I was going to say, I am day 3 of my kitchen rebuild. It is not going to be finished today, but I should have a functioning kitchen tomorrow where, I have water that turns on and I have a stove that turns on. I may still need to put flooring down, but that's fine. It has been an incredible journey that I never want to do again.
I totally understand. Honestly, dude, our house has been under construction for a while because of the work. We had to leave the house, obviously, for a while. We talked about that on a previous episode. They painted yesterday. It's done. They're not coming back till Monday to work on other stuff. It still smells like fucking paint in the places they painted, though, so we're just opting to stay in the area we were at before. But the good news is, hopefully by tomorrow, it won't smell as strongly. And we'll be able to just uncover stuff, clean. I'm going to vacuum the shit out of some places. Probably going to mop too, just because it's a chance to do it while stuff's uncovered. And then move back into our normal routine of things. And the guy even said when he was working, he's like, dude, I don't know what's going on with your house, but it's so cold upstairs even when it's toasty downstairs. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It costs a lot, but the radiators suck upstairs. So at least someone has confirmed that it's because the Brits fucking love having their houses cold and bragging about how cold they keep their houses and how they never turn their heat on. And so it's just okay, at least someone has acknowledged that it is uncomfortably cold upstairs. It is actually cold. And so hopefully he'll be able to fix that so that when the heat's not on, it'll be cold, but at least maybe if the radiators actually work upstairs, it'll also be warm up there too. And also maybe we'll get our money's worth for the fucking insane amount of money you have to spend on utilities right now in this country. So we'll see.
Just board up the stairs going up there. Leave it. There's no reason to be up there. I feel like that's also a British thing. It's just having parts of the house that you just don't live in. Because it sucks. Well,
yeah, if it's some manor house or something like that, but most people's houses are so small, I don't think you can really get away with that.
I'm gonna have to really deep clean the house once we're done, because obviously we're doing construction, and I had to throw up a bunch of drywall, and I had to chop, put holes so I could run wire and all sort. Because while we're doing everything, it's we might as well install a light fixture here and change these outlets out so that we can have more, outlets, and just doing all this the little bullshit. And I'm just I like doing it. I feel so I don't want to say manly, but I feel very accomplished. It's just look, I'm doing something with my hands that other people can't or won't do. And electrical stuff's very simple. As long as you got the switch turned off, you're fine. But I got a guy helping me with all the plumbing stuff because I'm not fucking with that. I'm more worried about water damage than I am shocking myself, because I shock myself constantly.
Yeah, basic electrics isn't that hard. I mean, if you're installing a light fixture, it's more I found my lack of experience with doing stuff like installing things in plaster and drywall was harder. But it's pretty simple especially if you're just replacing a fixture. As long as the switch is off at the breaker, the fucking...
I had to sync something up in the ceiling. If you're just replacing the ceiling fan, that's fucking easy. But when you have to find the stud and then cut a hole so you can put the mounting plate up in there, that's a bitch.
Yeah, I replaced a single light fixture in my place in not Fort Benning, but in Columbus, Georgia. And it was just it was really annoying me, so I just bought one at Walmart and or at Lowe's or whatever. And then it was old wiring, but the same principles apply.
The black goes to the black, the white goes to the white, and the green goes to sometimes if you're lucky, there's a place to ground it.
There wasn't any in this one. I remember this very clearly because it was a house built in the 1920s. There was no ground in that fixture, but it was fine. It worked, and got a safe light
ground
fixture.
It to the you just attach it to the fucking the metal that's up there, and it's fine.
Yeah, because it was blowing out. This was in the days before it was, compact fluorescent or LED bulbs were as common, and it just kept blowing out. The fixture was fucked up, and it kept blowing out incandescent bulbs. So I replaced it, and I told the landlady when we did the walkthrough on the way through, I was just like, "Yeah, this was causing a problem," and so I just got a new light fixture at Lowe's, and and replaced it. And she was like, "Do you know any other people who want to rent the house who are good with stuff like this?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, people call me when like there's a hairline crack in the fucking toilet seat cover, like, and I was like, yeah, I just whatever, single guy living in an old house, happy to be a normal guy.
And I do feel like that is kind of a the things that you should know, and I don't mean this in like I mean everybody should know this. Like if you're living somewhere, whether you're renting or owning, like a light fixture is kind of expensive now, but even a cheap one is like $50. But like if you're just like a plug that you like the receptacle that you plug into. That's like 80 cents to replace one of those, or like $1 in inflation days. And it's very simple. You just turn, like you said, you turn the switch off, you unscrew it, you pull it out, you put keep everything where it is. Like there's going to be a black wire that's going to attach to it. There's going to be a ground wire, replace all of that, and you're golden. And it's just going to save you a lot of headache, because like And you know what? I learned all this shit on YouTube, so it's very simple. Like my dad didn't really teach me much of this because, but how often was there opportunity? Like it's not like I'm calling Lily over and like, come on, watch your dad electrocute himself over here real quick.
I would say two things though. Number one, anything more complicated than a light fixture or a ceiling fan, probably not a good idea. Also, like if your landlord doesn't let you, then just either don't do it or just don't tell them. But sometimes that's unavoidable, that they're just going to be the kind of person who's around and does walkthroughs and shit. So just like inconspicuous stuff is a lot easier than explaining after the fact when you've done something big, and then they're going to fucking charge you for it and then kick you out, but then also keep the added value you've added to the house. Exactly. So just bear that in mind. Also, if you're in Europe, just be cautious, as regards this stuff, because 230 volt is a little more painful to shock yourself with than 110. I'll just say this. So just tread lightly and pick your battles wisely as regards, that you'll kind
be
of
fine.
work.
I touched a spicy wire this morning. I was fine.
Did you not turn it off at the breaker?
So I thought it was off. So I have the whole kitchen is the breaker is off for that. And that's where I've been doing all my wiring and stuff. And while my guy was working on, he was underneath the dishwasher because he had to install a plug for the dishwasher and whatnot. So while he was doing that, I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to replace. I bought like one of those things that's a light switch and an outlet, just because I want more outlets up on the countertop area. And that one is not turned off apparently, and that's what I learned. But I have a thing that I can, touch so the smart thing to do would have been to not assume, but also like 110's not going to kill you. You're fine, especially on an outlet. It's easy to find.
Don't take a bath with a toaster, but like,
sure.
Yeah, you'll probably be okay.
Even that, the breakers will go off. You can't kill yourself that way anymore.
Oh, is that like an old-fashioned thing?
Yeah, the toaster, like dropping something electric into water, like immediately trips the breaker and turns the electrical off to that. You gotta find a new way to electrocute yourself, I guess.
I guess, yeah. In Britain there are no power sockets in bathrooms.
Oh, that's wild. Where do you plug your electric razor into?
Well, those they will sometimes have, but there's a special plug for electric razors, and they typically. The tines and stuff are different. Like they look like the European Schuko plugs, but sometimes they're 110 in hotels. Sometimes they'll have them for both 110 and 230, but normally it's just 110 for those. But
I like that the British had to put something into the housing code to be like, here, we got to stop people from killing themselves in these houses.
The same thing, right? They switched from using town gas or coal gas to using natural gas because it was just so easy to commit suicide by sticking your head in the oven and turning the gas on. So like they just the suicide rate dropped massively when they switched to natural gas. But
yeah, you guys don't have guns. You got to have now you need guns to start killing yourselves, I suppose. Taking all the other stuff away.
But yeah, I think it's just because of electrocution. Weirdly, like that's a strange one because obviously in America you can have plugs like right next to the bath. That's pretty common. you cannot with British building codes. So it does make it safer. It's also when you say plug in electric razor, it's like, yeah, but nowadays you can just get battery electric razors. Like they're just so much more common. But also the one thing where it's annoying is that if you want one of those high-speed Japanese bidet toilet seats, which are amazing, and I strongly recommend, it's so expensive to get them here because they're not something that you can be easily fitted on your own. Like they're expensive to buy. Like they're just not sold very widely. And an electrician has to rig it up for you because like you can't just plug it in the way you can in America. But I would say weirdly,
my bidet is not electric, so you can also just get a normal one.
Right,
it doesn't have a radio in it. You listen to podcasts on the shitter. But
like yours doesn't have a heater at all. Do you just have like the Tushy one or whatever?
Yeah, I got the cheap little Tushy one.
Yeah, but that if that one only uses water and doesn't have like a power plug to work a pump or anything like that, then that's sick. I see if I should get one of those here because
it's just water pressure. It's like I ran a line because it's the toilet's right next to the sink. So I ran, I went down to the Lowe's and got the water lines, the flexible water lines, and you just run it like to the thing. It clamps onto the toilet. And it just works off of water pressure. So you got to be careful. You don't want to crank it up. You'll blow yourself out. But you can turn it on a little bit. It's going to be cold. It's going to be the cold water. And you know what? It's fine. You don't need it for that long. You just use it for a couple for like 5 seconds or so, and you don't have to. You feel clean afterwards. I don't like pooping in places that don't have bidets anymore.
It's weird because we always used to make fun of it. Like that was a punchline in I think it was a punchline in Lost in Translation. But that's like, I swear to God, if you use one, you're like, wait, this is amazing.
When I went to Japan, the office that I was working out of that had a bathroom and had 2 stalls, and one of the stalls had a bidet and one of them didn't. And it was the nice heated seat electric one that had the different kind of spray methods and not, it's really fancy. I don't have that. I just have like a little jet of water. But I would wait for that one to be open so that I could use it because a bidet in any way, shape, or form is fantastic. I mean, look, if you got shit on like your forearm, you wouldn't just be like, let me rub some dry paper on this and I'll be fine. Of course not. It's disgusting. You would go use some water to wash it off at least.
I guess the thing that I would say about it is you should definitely try one if you haven't before. I was a convert to it because when I was augmenting, take that again. When I got tasked to augment the exercise Ultra Freedom Guardian at this Korean Air Force base in Suwon, they didn't have toilet paper in the bathrooms. You had to bring your own, but they had bidet seats on every toilet. And I was like, well, fuck, you had to use it. You know what I mean? Unless you want to like use your pack of toilet paper. And I was like, wait a minute, because like you said, heated seats, heated water, and it's just like it's incredible. And it's just like, I got one. My apartment in New York was so small that even if they had wanted to make the power socket like far from the bath, they couldn't because like you could basically touch everything in the bathroom from the bath. But I got like one of the Toto ones, like the nice ones off Amazon, and plugged it in, and that thing had the water heater and the seat heater and it was incredible. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, dude, this is the future. Like more people need to try these things because like there's this weird sort of, I don't know, like. Maybe it's just that is this notion that like there's something gay about spraying your asshole with water, but like how is this any different than fucking like a shower? Like if you use a spray handle in the shower and you wash and like at some point the water runs between your ass cheeks. This is just more water. That's all. And it's people get weird about this stuff, but like it's cleaner. It's cleaner. You use less toilet paper. If you have like hemorrhoids or like irritation, it's less of a problem. Like
oh god, when I had the flu and I had the runs, having a bidet is so because you're gonna shit like 6 times a day.
Also, post-sex cleanup, regardless of what kind of parts you got or what kind of sex, if you've got parts, if you're fucking in a way that involves you being the person being penetrated. It's a fucking miracle. Everyone who knows the experience will fucking agree. Like, I'm telling you, the bidet seat is the future. I just wish we could get a heated one in Britain without having to like pay thousands of pounds to have someone fucking install it. But I didn't know. I just looked while we were talking, Francis. They sell the Tushy one in the UK. It's just that unfortunately, fucking you can only get the fucking cold water ones because unfortunately the heated ones do not well, it's just not practical here. But it's better than what the Brits call a bum gun, which is the thing that they use in like Southeast Asia. Those are fine; those work. Like, or in the Middle East too, like the spray handle ones.
Yeah, you just kind of lean forward and spray your butthole.
Yeah,
off.
you have a shower sprayer that you spray off your asshole with. But like, those are fine. But I had to use those in Indonesia and Malaysia. But I would say this thing though, this just we're going to change the topic. This is not just going to be ass cleaning chat, but I'm just telling, if you are a skeptic, just buy one of the Tushy ones off Amazon because they're pretty cheap. Hook that thing up, give it a try, see how you feel. I swear to God, you'll be like, what? This was like an option all along?
I feel like it's just there's not enough exposure to it in America. Like there's just not bidet. I've never seen a bidet while I've been out and about. Like I had to go to Japan to use one for the first time. So I feel like if more places just were like, hey, we're just gonna put bidets in here just for you can use it, you can not use it, it doesn't matter. I feel like there would be more Americans would be into it. But you gotta we gotta to get over that hump first where we start making it available, and then I think people will want it more.
There was this really good curry restaurant, maybe it's still around. It's in the East Village called Curry, Japanese curry place in Manhattan, and they had a really, really small bathroom because obviously like a lot of restaurants in Manhattan are like that. And they had like the super Japanese ergonomic design where like all the space was intelligently used, but they had a really good Toto, like the ultra luxury Toto one. And there were cards you could take that was like for someone that like was affiliated with the restaurant was like, if you're interested in having like a Japanese toilet bathroom setup, contact us and we can help you. And I was like, it's like fucking Scientology, but for being hygienic with your asshole care. Like, incredible. More people should be evangelists for bidet toilet seats. I'm just saying.
More Scientologists should be cleaning my asshole, I guess.
Well, Francis, you know what? There's a different kind of thing involving cleaning out parts of your body. And there's a whole system in the Army about fucking testing for drugs by utilizing it, as in they collect your pee and they determine if you've been taking drugs. This is a thing. Everyone who's been in the military has had to do a piss test. Depending on how rigorous they were, whatever training school you were in or whatever, they might have actually really enthusiastically observed to make sure you were pissing.
So one time I had somebody who was like, no, I have to watch it leave your body. Every other time, it's just somebody's just like, just go over there and piss, man. I don't want to look at your dick, because nobody does. No one wants to be like, as we call them, the meat gazers. Nobody wants to be the guy who just has to take everybody and then look at a bunch of dicks. Nobody, sometimes maybe there are. I thankfully never had anybody who was enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I did one time when I was in ROTC, when I was at cadet camp. That they just were like doing the fucking extremely what you might describe as like by the book standard. And for anyone who's listening who's a former officer who did ROTC, chances are good you went through leadership development assessment camp at Fort Lewis, Washington, or LDAC for short, and you were in those shitty old World War II barracks. That was a thing everyone went through, and they had like the big like porcelain or ceramic, whatever the fuck, like trough pissers. And I recall there was this insane cadre guy from like the University of New Mexico who had this handle broom mustache, and he just stared. He was fully by the book a meat gazer. And I don't know, man. It's weird, but
the trough setup sounds ideal because you could like one meat gazer for like four guys.
Well, he was doing one at a time, but like, yeah, it was actually pretty ideal because it wasn't like you had to like step into a toilet cubicle the way that it normally is done, because that's how it's normally done on bases. And so this involves a situation in which people will then, sometimes like you hear stories of people having like prosthetic dicks with like clean urine and stuff like that. But anyway. All the logistics of getting your piss tested aside, we found a story on military.com that I found interesting, both because it was new to me, but it was something you said you had heard as like a barracks rumor before. So I'm going to read this and we can react. The headline is, "Stop eating poppy seeds or you might fail a drug test," Pentagon warns. All service members have been advised by the Pentagon to stop eating poppy seeds or risk registering a false positive on military drug tests. Certain varieties of the small black seeds, which are commonly sprinkled on bagels, buns, and other breads, may have higher traces of codeine than previously thought. Now, codeine?
Codeine?
Like opiates, sure.
Are we putting fentanyl in our bagels now?
I didn't. Yeah, exactly. You're getting you had the rainbow bagel in 2015. Now you have the Deep South Houston lean bagel that's just like black light purple. According to a February 17th memo from Gil Cicernos, the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. The Pentagon said Tuesday that it became aware of the potential problem last year and is now analyzing codeine-only positive drug tests from 2019 to the present to figure out how many troops could have been affected by poppy seeds. Codeine is an
How do you do that? Like, if you came back to me, it's like from 2019. It's 2023 currently.
We kicked you out the army for fucking drugs and you're living in a van down by the river, but hey, we might have gotten it wrong. Did you eat poppy seed bagels? And be like, yeah. Dude, you have no idea how much I was into poppy seed bagels. I was into fucking those weird, was it Pavitica? You know what I'm talking about? Like the swirl loaf and everything. Dude, I was clowning on those. Like, yeah, it's just so strange. Anyway, continuing. They're analyzing from 2019 to the present to figure out how many troops could have been affected by poppy seeds. Codeine is an opiate used to treat moderate pain, but also widely abused as a recreational drug. Quote, the amount of poppy seeds consumed, concentration of codeine detected in urine, and time of consumption relative to the drug test are also important factors. Commander Nicole Schwegman, a Department of Defense spokesperson, said in an email statement to military.com. For now, drug testing has not been suspended, Schwegman says. Quote, however, as the topic continues to evolve, subject matter experts are reviewing the latest information to assist with potential next steps, unquote. Okay, continuing. The risk of drug test contamination from seeds has long been known. In 1991, a study published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences analyzed the problem after U.S. Army Forensic Toxicology Drug Testing Laboratory in Hawaii, or the laboratory in Hawaii, reported potential false opiate positives related to poppy seeds found in foods of the Pacific Rim.
Now, see, okay, so this is, I guess the rumors are true if we have an actual study for this, but like, I don't know, like, what kind of concentrations are we trying to talk about here? Because like, also heroin, if I remember, like weed is the only one that stays in your system for like any extended period of time. Like weed's the one, like it might be in your system 10, 20. They always said 45 days, which is absolute bullshit. I passed a piss test 9 days out. So you're fine.
This is an interesting aside because I remember reviewing this when looking it up because my brother was taking a drug test for a job and I was curious. Because I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot all about like obviously I didn't smoke weed at all when I was in the army, and so I never had to worry. Like I basically I never really got piss shy, so I never had to worry about whether I could just give a sample. It was more like I hated piss tests because I knew that at least one of my soldiers was going to fucking piss hot, and that invariably that was going to be more stupid paperwork. But rather, I remember reading this and. The literature on it is very funny because, I mean, I've spoken to people who have had experiences as lab techs who have said that, like, depending on how long it's in your system and your body fat, or how much you've done and your body fat concentration, like, they've had examples of people who, like, they didn't have any reason to believe had smoked weed. Like, they were people in, like, pretty severe lockdown who were getting drug tested as part of, like a court program. And we're still testing positive at 45 days. But by and large, it'll be out of your system by 14 days. Really, like, I think in the study that I read, 22 days was the maximum. But this is where it gets funny, right? So, like, 22 days was someone who was, like, really heavy user. But the story that people have told themselves about drug testing is that, like, weed stays in your system so long that, and I'm dead serious, this study referenced this, that there was at least one documented example of someone, their lawyer successfully arguing down from them getting a parole violation for a failed drug test by citing supposedly some science that had said that weed could stay in your system forever. And so you'd always piss hot on the test. And just like, I mean, I'm sure that guy found the fucking science and that apparently it's notionally plausible, or someone thought it was plausible at the time. But yeah,
right.
like,
Well, it can stay in your system, but is it at detectable trace levels is the question. And
also there's a go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was gonna say I always remembered because I remember reading an article in Stars and Stripes back in back when I was in Afghanistan, so 2004. So drug testing in the military has always been a thing that we have to talk about every so often. And in that, it was talking about that there's like a certain like threshold that they test for. Like as long as you're not above this amount, you're fine. But like if there are trace amount, like if you pee in the cup and it goes, and like you're at, I don't know, a 311 concert the night before, and there's a lot of secondhand smoke around you, it's not going to get you kicked out of the Army. Like it's not going to be enough to register. Like I guess there's an acceptable amount. Now this is an article that I'm remembering from almost 20 years ago, so I don't know the complete veracity of it, but I do remember that there is, at least the Army, a certain amount, specifically with weed. Like I imagine heroin and cocaine, that's you don't secondhand snort coke. So but also that heroin and cocaine and that kind of stuff is out of your system in like a couple of days, right?
Well, there was cocaine gets out of your system, in like 3 or 4 days. So in a way, the Army winds up incentivizing harder drugs because weed, the most benign of drugs you're going to do, I suppose. You have the strongest likelihood of testing positive. And also there was the story of, do you remember the 1998 Winter Olympics? Were you paying attention to that at all?
Probably. Was that
Nagano?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There was a Canadian snowboarder who won the gold medal in, I think it was the first time snowboarding was in the Winter Olympics. And he got the gold medal, but it got rescinded because he tested positive for weed. But he was able to get it overruled because he said that it was just secondhand exposure at a party. Which, I mean, in a way, like, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I would be very disappointed if any champion snowboarder didn't test positive for weed. But that was a thing where
they should be tested to make sure they are smoking weed.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest though. Like, this was a situation where this person successfully overruled at the Olympics because they were able to make this case. But the point you were making about the threshold, that's correct. The way it works is that there's a basic threshold that they run. It's cheaper and easier to run it through. It's not particularly sensitive. Then there's a more sensitive one. I think it's like gas chromatography, but I can't remember. The way it works is just it uses a different system. It's a more involved process, and it takes more time, and therefore is more expensive. And so that's the point, that there's the question of like, will you piss hot on your standard pee in a cup drug test where they're using the cheaper, easier process? That's, I think, where the things we're saying about like the 21 days maximum thing. Whereas like, obviously, if they were doing the more involved, the more precise one, then you might continue to. But like, your sample doesn't get triggered for that higher level testing unless you break that threshold. If that makes sense, which also makes me laugh.
Like, we need to do more testing on this piss. Send it to the piss lab.
Which is very funny because I mean I've heard so many stories. I've seen so many cases of people getting off on technicalities for stupid things. I had a soldier who pissed hot for cocaine, but managed to argue it down because a soldier had a seizure, and the guy who was running the table for the unit prevention leader jumped up to help him, and therefore the chain of custody was broken. So the guy got those results thrown out. I heard of another one where a guy pissed hot, but it turned out that the UPL had left the samples in his truck like over the weekend and hadn't taken them to the lab. So chain of custody was broken. There was one, like, if I remember correctly, the guy had locked his truck and then he'd left. He'd gotten drunk that night and dropped his keys, and the keys had gotten frozen in a block of ice. And so he wasn't able to get into his fucking car for a while. But yeah, the degree to which the testing is done, like, there's a part of me that wonders about this thing with opiate testing and poppy seeds. Like, how sensitive can it be? How much do you have to eat, in order to bring it up? Because once again, like, you don't get the super, super fine-tuned, precision drug test by default. You only get that if you pop hot on the easier, like the lower or the higher bar to clear one.
Well, okay, so was heroin one of the ones that everybody was tested for? Because I remember there was everybody was tested for weed and coke, And then there was like on a rotational basis, there's like 1 in 4 were tested for barbiturates, 1 in 4 were tested for
LSD, which I have no idea if you can even test for. Like,
Right.
I remember the safety briefing or whatever they'd give you at the beginning of a piss test, and it's like, some of that stuff I remember thinking, they're like, oh, we'll test for anabolic steroids, we'll test for...
So steroids, they need more. I used to be a UPL. I was a UPL for like a year and a half, so I had to go to the fucking classes and
Oh
everything.
my God, they call him Mr. Piss. Francis
call
has
me Mr. Piss.
all of the inside scoop on the
Yeah,
fine art of piss
So for
testing.
anabolic steroids, they actually need 60 milliliters. So for steroid usage, it has to be a very specific...
That's what I always thought. They had to suspect it. They had to basically like order it. Like it has to be a thing that's done through your chain of command. Yeah, I remember that. Whereas, like I believe they just test for opiates. I don't know how precise it is to test for heroin versus codeine versus I don't know, fucking morphine. Like I always thought more or less like on a molecular level they're pretty similar, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, they definitely test for cocaine and weed. I know that I think MDMA comes up as amphetamines. So like if you were smoking crystal meth versus if you were taking ecstasy, it would pop hot for the same thing. But this is just it's crazy that this is actually a concern. So I'm going to keep reading. The poppy plant can produce opium and be refined into codeine, heroin, and morphine. Typically, the seeds do not contain those substances naturally, but can become contaminated during processing, leaving trace amounts of the powerful drugs which are restricted under federal law and military rules.
Wait a minute. What processing happens that turns this into codeine? Like
I have no idea. This is
like,
this feels like an
processing
article
it like yeah. This is the heroin and poppy seed processing plant. It's just a weird coincidence, actually. It's
I know
not
that's
really.
something that's killing me. It's like this feels like a story that was written. I mean, not casting aspersions on the writer, but like it feels like the source material he's working with is all people who have no idea what they're talking about. So like I'm gonna read this quote. Recent data suggests certain poppy seeds varieties may have higher codeine contamination than previously reported, Cicernos wrote in the memo. Quote, consumption of poppy seed products could cause a codeine positive urinalysis result and undermine the department's ability to identify illicit drug use. Schwegman said the Pentagon began reviewing what data was available last year and also contracted an independent laboratory to analyze multiple poppy seed brands for codeine and morphine contamination. That analysis and other recently published studies triggered the warning memo, she said. Quote, out of an abundance of caution, I find protecting service members and the integrity of the drug testing program requires a warning to avoid poppy seeds, Cicernos wrote in the memo. Quote, as more information becomes available, we will revise this policy accordingly, unquote. Service members
drug testing people. Like this is absolutely ridiculous that like if somebody's entire career could get fucked up because they ate a poppy seed bagel that morning and your response is just like, just don't eat poppy seed bagels, I guess. No. This is America. I'm going to eat all the poppy seed bagels I want and I'm going to piss in your cup and you're not going to kick me out. That's how this should be going.
Service members are advised to contact their local legal offices about concerns over urinalysis drug test results. The Pentagon's current estimate is that the contamination may have affected troops beginning in the fall of 2019. Quote, as we gather more information, we will reassess and update as appropriate, Schwegman wrote. Okay.
I'm contacting Jag because I pissed hot and just like, no, I ate some poppy seeds. Like, Sergeant Horton, it says that this is LSD, MDMA, and weed. It's like, yeah, I ate some poppy seeds before.
I'm the bagel boss. I've eaten so many poppy seed bagels. And
do you know what's in an everything bagel? It's fucking everything.
Literally everything. I've got fucking crocodile in my bagel. Yeah, this is funny. I mean, I guess in a way it's like, all right, I don't want to be like blindly trusting things to the point where I find myself just kind of being like, oh, that box been ticked. But like, if they do actually, have laboratories running results and they're able to pop a positive test based on people consuming certain varietals, certain strains of poppy seed, it's kind of funny. But I mean, like, all right, maybe
Can you imagine like the testing that has to go into this though? It's just like you have to find. I guess you could just go to New York and just stand outside of any bagel shop and start paying people for their piss. You're like, how many of these have you eaten? All right, pee in this cup.
Well, it's like I guess maybe it's also just a question if they actually have to like look at the poppy seeds that are commercially available and what those what those are used in and what the differences are, like what the variances are. I mean, I could see that there being if you're like, yo, I definitely got a false positive and they kicked me out of the army for some bullshit, but it's like a brand of bagel that's only sold in, I don't know, Okinawa or something like that, and you popped hot in, Washington State or California or something, probably not likely. But I guess in a way, this isn't precise or specific enough for us to really know like how widely affected people might be. If that makes sense, like maybe there's literally one, magic beans kind of poppy seed that absolutely gets you high. Like you fully nod off when you eat a poppy seed bagel with these poppy seeds in it. Or maybe it's a more common problem than people realize. Maybe they only recently started testing for codeine as like in the sense of testing for usage of like a medication. I don't know. Cause I mean like, this stuff evolves and there's a whole multi-billion-dollar industry around, the just general world of drug criminalization and drug testing as part of that. And so I couldn't tell. I mean, because there's states in America, for our international listeners, you may not realize this, but there's states in America where like, because they can get away with it, they test you for drugs, for any bullshit job. Like I remember a friend of mine having to take a piss test for a job at Target. And it's like, who gives a fuck? Yeah. Who fucking cares? But yeah, you had in 2003 in Forsyth County, Georgia, you absolutely had to take a piss test to get a job at Target.
Yeah, because it wasn't until the job that I currently have that I was like, they were hiring me, and this was 10 years ago that I got hired, and I was just like, okay, do you need me to go to a lab or anything to pee in a cup? And they just look. I mean, it's a tax company. They're like, what? No, we don't care. Don't be high at work. It's very simple.
Well, it's like the Canadian military has to accommodate the fact that weed is legal in Canada now, and so they just have rules for like when you can use weed, and like if you test positive,
just like
for
booze, it's just like alcohol.
Exactly. Like I think their rules are like you can't use it within. I could look it up. I know that one of them is like if you're going on exercise. If you're deploying, you can't use it within 28 days. I think for like pilots, they can't, or maybe pilots for 28 days. Also, there's a category where like you can't use it within 14 days, and there's one category where you can't use it like within I think like 12 hours or 24 hours. But like if you're in the Canadian military and you're like off for the weekend, you can absolutely smoke weed on like Friday and Saturday night, and like it's legal now, and it's just like alcohol. And cool. I mean, fucking great. I just think about how many soldiers I had who like, I'm not going to say they were like superstars. They weren't like all Audie Murphy, but like they were fine. And they got not only did they get out of the military, but like they got their veterans benefits taken away. They got their shit fucked up. Their life got made immeasurably worse because they smoked weed. It's just like, right. All right. We had a dude get caught smoking weed in the turret on patrol. You shouldn't do that. Yeah, that's a bad idea. That is a fucking bad idea. Like we can emphatically say when if you have a time machine and you get deployed to Afghanistan in 2009 during the surge and you're trooping around Paktika province, Afghanistan in a convoy where you're providing security for the battalion commander, you probably shouldn't whip out a joint and smoke it in the battalion commander's convoy. This is what happened. However,
That is undistilled dude's rock though. Like that is a man who is waiting to die, and I respect him.
I mean, my NCO was a dude who caught him, and he was like, I thought I smelled it, and I asked the dude, what the fuck? And he was like, nah, man, that was just like that. I'm not going to use the word he used, but what he basically meant was that was just some Afghans driving by. They smoked weed. And I could smell the weed out of the car. And my NCO was like, I don't really believe this dude. And so, of course, they then got to like the fucking whatever outpost they were going to so that the commander could do this shura. And the soldier, once they were inside the security perimeter, he just like racked out inside the MRAP. But he had left, being a fucking genius, he had left his cigarettes and his lighter out. So his supervisor picked up the cigarettes and opened them, and there were fucking joints inside.
God bless him. Hell yeah.
Fucking was just out on patrol, blazing, just straight up.
Privates are just the most incredible species, man. Like I don't understand what it is about the E1 through E3 ranks that it's like you get your brain emptied out.
You didn't have to have a battle buddy no matter what your rank was on the FOB where they were normally based. Like it was dark at night. There weren't security lights. It wasn't the way like Bagram was. There were some lights in the very center core of the FOB, but pretty much everywhere was just unlit. It was fully dark at night, and there was a whole airfield. There was a whole perimeter. You could go for a run around they'd let you go for a run around the perimeter on your own. Like in retrospect, probably not the safest thing, but like the threat for snipers at that time was zero. Like we just didn't have a problem. And so, like, you could absolutely get away with smoking weed. Like, obviously, if you come up, on a piss test, then you're screwed. But, like, quite frankly, not that... I mean, I know a lot of people who went that whole deployment and never got piss tested. So it seems like, that's the risk you take. But, like...
I never got piss tested on when we were overseas either. But I was always part of smaller units, so...
I think I told this story, but I did, but it was just because my name had come up and I had just come back from leave, and I just happened to be in the battalion talk when I showed back up. And so they were just like, yep, your name's on the list. And I was like, well... And I think I told this story before. I'm sure I've told this story before because it's just full-on dad brain empty mode, but that, like, I had been offered a bong hit when I was back home in Indiana, and I was like, nah, man, I'm good. And then I was thinking, I was like, man, I could have gotten away with that shit. I absolutely could have gotten away with that shit. And then it's like, no, you absolutely wouldn't have. You would have fully pissed hot. So the lesson of the story, I guess, the lesson learned here is just like, don't smoke weed on deployment, or at least if you're gonna smoke weed on deployment, like do it smart. Like
don't do it on patrol. Don't you like you said? Go like, hey, we're done running patrols. We drank when we were overseas. We didn't drink and then go out on mission. That's insane. Like that's alcoholism. We were not alcoholics. Like that kid that's smoking weed. Like that's like you need to not do that while I require you. Like the ANA is already stoned enough. Like we don't need to add to that.
So for people who may not be familiar with this, anyone who deployed to Afghanistan around the time that Francis and I did, now you were there 4 years or 5 years before I was, the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police they didn't really, like, unless their officers and their senior officers were around, they didn't really crack the whip on soldiers taking drugs. You could buy like pharmaceutical drugs over the counter at pharmacies in Afghanistan. So like if you wanted to take amphetamines, if you wanted to take barbiturates, you could absolutely get them. Our unit had a platoon in their I think it was 0304 or 0203 deployment to Afghanistan, where like everyone got rolled up because they were buying Valiums in like the local market. But like they think the cannabis plant originated in Afghanistan, like or somewhere in Central Asia. Weed grows everywhere there. People farm it. They make hash. Afghan soldiers smoke hash a lot. And so like it was pretty common where you'd go to an outpost or like a security checkpoint or anywhere where it was just the ANA or ANP or ABP. They'd be smoking joints. They would just roll a joint and smoke it.
And you know what? Smoking joints was fine. It was when they were fucking banging heroin that was a problem.
Yeah, I never saw heroin, but that's just because like I was a huge Boy Scout, so probably no one was gonna do heroin around me. I didn't ever see that, but I'm sure. I mean, like heroin's a problem in Afghanistan, so like yeah, absolutely.
That was seeing the ANA guys nodding out is the difference between I'm gonna take a stoner sleep and I'm gonna and nodding out. So you could definitely be like, cool, that guy's useless for the next couple of hours.
I'm gonna sleep forever. Yeah, I would say. But like we've gotten a little bit off topic as we often do, but like there were sort of ways to game the system. And if you were going to smoke weed, like the time to smoke weed was like post-deployment block leave, because you get like 30 days off. Like you could easily get away with it. But I think the biggest thing is that like weed shouldn't be illegal and drugs should be decriminalized. Like so the fact that like they can kick you out of the, take away all this stuff, like whatever, it's voluntary, like it's middle class welfare basically, like, you're not entitled to it. But it is very frustrating when I think about guys who did, 11, 12 months in a combat zone and pissed hot for weed and, got kicked out, lost their benefits, stuff like that. And it's like, where these kids were from, a lot of times like weed was already legal. Like it wasn't yet when we were in, but like within a few years, weed was legal. And it's crazy. It's crazy to me to think of the guys that some of these kids that got chaptered out who did their time, and like don't get any VA healthcare, don't get any GI Bill, don't get vocational rehab, don't get any of those things that you would get typically for veterans benefits because they smoked a joint or they fucking pass it around. Like, it's crazy to me. And that anyone who was in when Francis and I were in hears stories, knows stories about this, probably experienced, like saw people, in their unit or the other unit, like other company that they were in, like saw it happen. And it's just like, it is very, very strange. I mean, it's not the world's biggest injustice. I mean, you think about how many fucking people in America are in prison because of weed. Like my home state, you can get a year in prison for having a joint, and there's no minimum amount to trigger that. Like you could have like a 1/4 gram of weed. You could have like a single tiny nug. It's like practically the UAE where you fucking like, that you had weed in the treads of your shoes because you stepped on someone's old joint. Like you go to prison for 5 years. It's not quite that bad in Indiana, but like if they wanted to be a dick, that's enough weed to send you to prison for a year.
Right. They're not gonna unless you make them wanna, or unless they wanna,
or they're racist. Which they are.
Yeah.
But also, I guess to me, that this is just so funny because you would think that there could be another mechanism by which they could identify whether someone had a problem using opiates and then preclude the possibility of kicking people out for eating a bagel. You know what I mean? Like, the drug test is basically evidence enough, and like you can appeal in the sense of like you can plead there's some inconsistency or whatever, but like under normal circumstances, like that's enough for you to get UCMJ, and they would probably chapter you. And it's like, wait, so you're saying that they may have chaptered people just for fucking eating poppy seeds? That to me is the part that's the wildest. It's like, oh yeah, since 2019, this may have been a problem. This may we may have ruined some people's careers and potentially lives because our shit is so unwired, like the opposite of wired tight, that like it thinks that you're drinking lean when you like you said, you're eating like a little fucking swirl cake.
So I guess no more bagels for anybody in the Army. Nate, I have a little section that I'd like to start. I didn't give you forewarning for this, but I think you'll like it. A little section. You know how Joe has questions from the Legion? I want to do something that's just called "Hey Dad." I get questions all the time from people. I kind of started writing. If you have questions for a dad, we are, Nate spiritually and myself physically are fathers. I want to put it out. If you got questions, you can DM me directly. You can send something to Sergeant Joker at hellofawaytodie.com. There's website has the email and everything. So this question came in from somebody a couple weeks ago. A young man who grew up without a real central father figure, and he's a young adult now, and he's asking how to shave. And I think that's a good question for the two of us, since we both in the Army had to shave every day, whether your face wanted you to or not. And you can obviously go online, but it's all like clickbaity shit. It's all SEO. Like, so I figure this would be a good opening. So Nate, how do you shave? How often do you shave? I guess would be my first question.
I have facial hair now, but what I do is I typically use my home trimmer, my home shaver, about once every 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks to trim it up, or I go to the barbershop where I get my hair cut and just have them do a beard lineup. I don't have the world's greatest beard. I have a pretty nasty mustache, like pretty thick mustache, but not so much in the way of beard cover. So it doesn't really look good if I try to grow it out. I look like a European ISIS convert. So I
looking real Chechnyan.
Yeah, well, no, the Chechens have good beards and good hairlines, dude. Have you seen Ramzan Kadyrov? Like, come on. I would say so. I shave, like I said, once every two or so weeks. I use a trim, but part of it involves shaving up, like buzzing off to like a relatively minimum level, and then shaving to kind of shape up the beard line with a razor. And so I do shave, like hot shave, using shaving cream and a razor. And so my sort of quick summary of it is a couple of things. Number one, I saw this happen a lot with my soldiers who were real young and had to shave, even though like it was only like, realistically they only needed to do it once every couple of days. They would buy cheap disposable razors and they suck. Now, I don't want to be a spokesperson for whatever razor company, but I would say get like one of those the razors where you can swap out the little blade kits, like the Gillette ones, when you get like a pack of 5 razors. I'm not going to say that they're super cheap, but you don't have to replace them that often. Like, depending on how heavy your beard is, you might only need to replace them like once every couple of weeks. You just take a look at how gross like the lubrication strip on them is and whether or not like they feel dull. But the big thing is, if you're not shaving every day, if you're not shaving, say, every week, like it might be kind of annoying and irritate your skin to just straight up shave it. You obviously you're going to use shaving cream, and I'd say use hot water to get the hot as you can stand in your hands or whatever, to just like get the beard hairs kind of like more flexible. Wash your face with hot water, put shaving cream on. But if the beard hairs are pretty long, I would say get one of those. You can get them for pretty cheap, like a buzzer razor and like a beard trimmer, and get it down to a more manageable length before you hit it with the razor, because otherwise it's going to like jam up. You run the risk of cutting yourself. But really, like the simplest way to say it, wash your face with hot water, lather up shaving cream on the area where you're going to shave. When you're shaving over your mustache, like use your tongue to kind of put pressure against it. Follow where the late razor is, like use the tongue to push your lip upwards, or like into the razor. And then, just rinse it, wash it, with every stroke really is the best thing to do, because you want to keep the blades clean. And then don't go fast, because if you slip, you can really cut yourself. Some people go multiple directions. For me, I only really had to go from like, sort of bottom to top on my neck. So basically like, from like starting like near where your Adam's apple would be, or a little below that, then work your way up to your chin. But then, just do that, wash it every time. And then afterwards, I would say, to avoid irritation and razor bumps and stuff like that, shave before you shower. But if you have to shave for like some military bullshit or some kind of thing early in the morning, you're not going to shower. Like I said, hot water to get everything ready. Shave, rinse as you go, and then hit your face with cold water a couple of times afterwards. Like wash all the shaving cream and everything off with cold water. I don't want to be like, oh, it closes your pores. But in my experience, if you do that, you hit it with a cold water afterwards, it seems to reduce the degree to which the skin gets like red and irritated afterwards. And then obviously, like with beard trimming, if you can grow a beard, like there's just kind of like an art to it. You'll just figure it out as you go, because depending on how thick your beard is, you may have to do it pretty often. I just don't. What I basically have is sort of like not really a beard, just stubble all over, and then a mustache. So I basically look like a Soviet fighter pilot in like 1979. That's worked for me. But like in the years when I couldn't have any facial hair, that was what I did every morning. Was like I said, the hot water, shaving cream, rinse as you go, try to take it slow, down to up on the chin. And then hit it with cold water afterwards.
So I once upon a time was going to be like a shaving guy, just like, oh, I'm going to try all these different
2011
things.
Beard guy.
Yeah. Well, I could never have a beard. So I was always just like, well, how can I, really, I wanted to just explore other options. So I did the safety razor thing, and I didn't like that. I did the thing where you get the cup and the brush, and I didn't like that. So I eventually just kind of, and my shaving has evolved over time. It changes like I just started using a shave bar instead of like shaving cream that I got from, I don't know, it's called Buff City, I think. It's like a local, it's like a Lush. If you've been to the mall, it's one of the more smelly places. But
I use Nivea sensitive skin shaving cream, but like when I was shaving every day, I get some bougie stuff. Kiehl's, Kiehls, makes really nice shaving cream, really really good stuff. But you don't have to spend fucking money on it. Like honestly, your garden variety Gillette, whatever shaving cream like is fine. I just go for the sensitive skin stuff because it I did find, like, especially when I'd have to shave and then go like do PT, like my skin would get irritated. So that helps stop that.
I'll tell you, one of the other big things that really changed things for me shaving is you saying to shave before you shower. I shave in the shower. I get into the shower. Sometimes it's the first thing, but usually I will do all of my washing first. And then, because I use, like, I have a scrub for my face that I use instead of just using, rubbing a bar of Irish Spring on my face like a monster that I was when I was 23. But when I'm in the shower, I have like a little a mirror that has little hooks on it, so you can hang your razor in there. And so the hot water just really, it really gets everything nice and, as you were saying, flexible. And then I can shave. I'm always, and it's got a mirror on it, so I can see what I'm doing. And it's always just going to come down to experimenting with different stuff. I use Harry's for razors. They're fine. It's neither an endorsement nor a condemnation, but it is a cheap way to get razors sent to me. I shave twice a week. I shave on usually Wednesdays and Saturdays. So that's, those razor blades, those heads will last me, a month or so before I have to get rid of them. But, I feel like, if you're getting, like, sometimes I get irritation on the neck, like I get the little neck bleeding and everything. And that comes from hurrying, or from rushing myself, or from, like, I will go over, like, I'll shave with the grain on my upper face, and I'll shave with the grain on my lower face, and then I'll do, like, kind of a gentle against the grain on my upper face, and then I'm kind of, like, depending on the neck, like, I try not to pass the razor over my neck skin very often, because that's where my irritation comes in. That's where I start to break out if I'm not careful. So
I'll tell you this much: I didn't really have to shave more than, say, once every week and some change. Like, and only had to shave my mustache until I was well into my 20s. But I was 18 when I realized I had to kind of start. I mean, like, all right, I had to start shaving the mustache bits a little when I was like 16, 17, but that's just because it looked nasty. But I remember watching the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and they were really big on, there was a dude who was like, he was a keyboardist in a band, and he had written a song for his wife for their anniversary, and he was like getting dressed up to look nice. And they told him, like, you gotta, especially he was a black dude. And so, like, he had an issue with, like, irritation and razor bumps. And they were like, you gotta shave before you shower. If he completely ignored them, and they're like, oh, fuck, what is this guy doing? But I remember I was like, oh, shave before you shower. Okay, I'll do that from now on. And that,
yeah, that shave, the same concept. When you're in the shower, it really helps open. You're in the shower after you shave. It helps keep the skin from getting irritation. But like I said, I just get in the shower and I shave in there, and it works out.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully this has been helpful information for the young gentleman who asked us this question. My dad never taught me how to shave, but he did teach my older brother, and I just watched because I was 14 and I really wanted to be having to shave. And then, like, it didn't happen for a very long time. But then I joined the army, and in a way it was kind of good because I got away with being late on shaving a lot more than, like, my swarthier friends did. So in the grand scheme of things, it worked out okay.
Experiment. If something's not working, try something different. It's shaving. It's pretty basic. You'll get it. Yeah, I've figured it out. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you have questions, like I said, you can DM either one of us. You can jump. We have a Discord, so if you're a member of the Patreon, or if you're a member of the Lions Led by Donkeys Patreon, we have a joint Discord. You can always ask questions in there, and we'll try to answer them. If not on the podcast, then I'll write about it on the website and put it up. But for everybody, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.